Zombies showed up, and my boyfriend Alexander rushed my sister into the car. The zombie's hand barely missed my head as I stood there frozen, staring at the two of them clinging to each other. Alexander, you're my boyfriend, why didn't you protect me? The tall, handsome man just looked annoyed. Sophia has a healing ability. If we get scratched by zombies on the way, she can save us. But you. He didn't finish his sentence, but his eyes said it all. Disgust. At the garage entrance, my parents were already in the front seat. Alexander sat in the back with Sophia protecting her. Stop arguing. Isabella. Get in the car now. My dad Samuel called out anxiously. I stepped forward and climbed into the vehicle. Zombies scratched at the door outside. We were in a villa neighborhood, there weren't too many zombies around. But after hiding here for so long, we'd run out of food and supplies. The power and water had been off for days. 3 days ago, the radio announced the location of Sway City Base, close by. My parents decided to head there with us. When the apocalypse hit, Alexander happened to be at my place. In just 1 month, he watched the world go from orderly streets to a living nightmare. In that time, almost all communication had gone down. The only way we heard news was through radio broadcasts. The broadcast said zombies spread the virus by biting people. If a wound touched zombie blood, could turn you into one, but there was also a chance you'd become an ability user instead. My younger sister Sophia got bitten by a zombie in the early days of the apocalypse and evolved the ability to heal. She saved Alexander, who had gone out to clear zombies from our neighborhood, and my father Samuel one after another. After that, she became the most respected person in our family. In the novel, the female lead uses her healing power to become Mateo's right hand, expanding the territory of Swayching Base until it becomes the largest survivor stronghold in the apocalypse. Now, this is where the story begins. And I'm just a minor villainess in this book, Sophia's half-sister, Isabella. My boyfriend Alexander ditched me the moment he found out the heroine had healing powers, turning into her biggest fanboy. Like right now, we're sitting in a car together. The car was driving along a rural road when Alexander gently held Sophia, who was shaken, and whispered reassurances. Don't be afraid, Sophia. I'll always protect you. He lightly patted her back, wrapping his arms around her like a protector. Sophia kept her eyes shut and frowned silently. I sneered inwardly. Fickle idiot. No wonder the heroine wouldn't even look twice at you. Ella, my stepmother, glanced at them through the rearview mirror, her face full of worry as she studied Sophia's pale complexion. She pulled a candy out from the pocket of her chest and said, Sophia, Mom still has one more candy. Hurry up and eat it. Hurriedly shoved it into Sophia's hand, as if afraid someone else would snatch it away. We hadn't eaten in 3 days. More precisely, the other 4 people in the car hadn't eaten in 3 days. On the very first day of arriving here, I decided to live if I had powers, and just turn into a zombie quickly if I didn't. So I rubbed zombie blood on my wounds early on, which eventually led me to develop spatial abilities. I not only have an enormous space where time is completely frozen, but also the ability to teleport short distances. That's why, when the apocalypse began, I directly stepped into a nearby supermarket from home and filled my space with survival supplies. I wasn't stupid enough to tell anyone else about this game-breaking ability. After all, it was them, the ones in the story, who abandoned me in a horde of zombies during an outing, just to save their own lives. My stepmom, my stepsister, my boyfriend who'd already turned on me, and my father who only listened to her. None of them came to rescue me. So this time, I'm only focused on staying alive. While they gave all their food to Sophia, I stayed hidden in my room, eating instant hot pot and watching reality shows on my tablet. When they were asleep, I'd get pumped up, grab my knife, and go out to kill zombies for training. While they were all dirty and disheveled, I enjoyed a nice bath in my room using water stored in my space. If it weren't for them insisting on going to the base, I could have just stayed holed up in the mansion forever. But going to the base does have its benefits. There's a massive zombie wave coming later. Without protection from the base, Ordinary people wouldn't stand a chance surviving out there on their own. I kept replaying details from the book in my head, thinking about how to slack off properly once we get to the base. In the story's plotline, I was just a stepping stone for the main couple's romance. Wherever trouble needed to happen, I had to show up. But this time, I'm done with drama. All I want is to survive. This time, I'm not causing trouble. I just want to survive. Just then, the car ahead suddenly slammed on the brakes. A striking figure dropped down from above, landing in front of us with his back to us. In his hand was a curved blade, smeared with fresh blood. Right in front of him, several zombies' heads rolled off and bounced on the ground. The figure looked oddly familiar. Could it be my childhood sweetheart, Thomas? The man stood still and turned around, his sharp brows and piercing eyes locking onto us with a chilling coldness. He sheathed the blade and wiped the blood on a corpse before walking toward a car not far away. The car ahead slowly started moving again. Is that kid from the Shao family? Samuel stammered, pointing nervously at Thomas. That's him. That's definitely him. He's heading toward Sway City Base 2. He just took down so many zombies, clearly not an ordinary person. Do you think he's awakened a special ability? We need to follow him fast. The more power people we've got, the safer we'll be. Ella urged Samuel to drive faster, her small eyes flickering with sharp calculation. Samuel immediately started the engine and sped after them. Thomas's family lived next door to my grandfather. They were one of the most well-known wealthy families in the city. When I was little, I used to play at his place all the time, chasing after him and calling him brother. He loved playing games, so I started picking it up too, pretty much became his little shadow. I looked down, lost in thought. He seemed to be doing well now. Strong and capable, he'd likely awakened some kind of combat ability. After my mom passed away, Ella moved in with her younger sister, who was only a year younger than me. It was Thomas who stayed by my side through that tough time. Our connection faded after I started seeing Alexander, and I never thought I'd run into him again here. As dusk drew near, Thomas parked his car beside an abandoned gas station. He got out, quickly slashed through a few zombie workers in their uniforms, then slipped inside the small convenience store. We followed suit and stepped out of the car too. The place had clearly been ransacked. Shelves were bare, everything edible or drinkable long gone. Samuel nodded at Thomas. Without a word, Thomas shifted a few shelves to block the damaged entrance, and then we all found corners to rest in. Samuel had been driving all day. He just laid his clothes on the ground and dropped off to sleep. Ella stayed beside him, eyes closed, quietly resting. Alexander brought Sophia over to sit somewhere quiet. He offered her a place on his shoulder to rest, but she declined. Her gaze, however, drifted toward Thomas instead. Thomas leaned against the back door, a smart spot. If trouble came from the front, he could bolt out the back fast. I glanced around and walked over to sit beside him, calling out, "Thomas." He gave a loam, as if on instinct. His hand now held a sharp knife, spinning it smoothly under the fading light, glinting silver, still playing with the blade. He glanced toward Alexander and Sophia. "Split it. About even," I said, laying my head on my arm. Back when I first started dating Alexander, Thomas wasn't happy. He warned me I'd regret it someday. Well, he was right this time. No doubt he's feeling pretty smug inside. "Are you feeling proud right now?" The words slipped out before I could stop myself. He looked down at me, his hand gently brushing my head. In those dark eyes, there was no pride, just something like worry. It made me feel uneasy without even trying. He messed up the short hair I'd cut specially for the apocalypse. "Stop messing with my hair." I scrambled to my feet, only to see him dig into his pocket and pull out a pack of compressed biscuits, still holding the knife, and hand them both to me. I froze. I didn't know whether to take it or not. In this world, everyone was eating barely enough to survive. For Thomas to share his food with me, it caught me off guard. "Take it." The tone left no room for argument. I felt a sudden lump in my throat. Not even my real dad or ex-boyfriend had ever treated me this way. I never expected the first person to show kindness would be Thomas. In front of everyone. I couldn't admit I had food, so I just took what he offered and said thanks. Alexander and Sophia saw the whole thing. Without hesitation, Sophia stood up and walked over to Thomas, pulling out the candy Ella had given her earlier. Big brother Thomas, thank you for protecting us today. Here's this for you. She handed over the candy. Oh, by the way, I've unlocked a healing ability. If anything dangerous happens, I can help. She smiled brightly, her eyes shining straight at Thomas. You're welcome. Just happened to be in the right place. Thomas declined her candy and closed his eyes to rest. She awkwardly pulled her hand back, shot me a glare, then returned to Alexander's side, glaring at me. Why? Did she feel embarrassed because she failed to win Thomas over? The main female character deeply admired power and authority. With the apocalypse upon them, society was completely overturned. Only those with strong abilities could survive in this new world. Her own ability leaned toward support, so she relied heavily on stronger people to protect her. That's also why she ended up with the male lead, Mateo, leader of Sway City Base and feared across the region for his powerful fire-based ability. According to the story, Thomas was only mentioned briefly. We followed him to the gas station. I clung to Alexander like a shadow. While Alexander showered the female lead with care, Sophia had never exchanged a single word with Thomas. Looks like my decision to leave the main females group and stick with Thomas has already changed the story. I studied Thomas's sleeping posture, thick lashes softly casting shadows beneath his eyes, brows slightly furrowed, a curved blade cradled in his arms, ready to spring into action at any moment. In the book, he was just an unnamed background character. But that scene where he slaughtered zombies right in front of the car proved without a doubt he's incredibly strong. I wonder what his ability even is. I rubbed my chin, thinking, staying with the main females group might mean getting left behind to feed zombies one day. Thomas and I at least have a bit of connection. Should I switch sides? I picked up the dehydrated biscuit Thomas handed me and took a bite. Ugh, so hard, so dry. I struggled to chew it, then finally swallowed with a loud crack. The sound was way too loud. I felt mortified. Thomas opened his eyes, silently pulled out a bottle of water from his bag and handed it to me, then closed them again. I took it with teary eyes. This was like manna from heaven. I finished the energy bar with the water, but it tasted bland. I couldn't help missing the beef jerky back in my space. Just as I was thinking that, Sophia walked over. Could I have a sip of water too? She licked her pale lips, clearly parched and cracked. I glanced at Thomas. He didn't say anything, so it looked like he was leaving the decision to me. I passed her the water. I'd been sipping carefully. I still had more than half left. She grabbed it eagerly and started drinking, finishing nearly the whole bottle in seconds. Watching her gulp it down made me a little worried. After finishing, she seemed to have regained strength. I'll pay you back when we reach the base, she said. I nodded silently, thinking to myself, I don't really need a little water, but it's not bad having the heroine owe me a favor. But then came the price of drinking too much. Late that night, Sophia whispered frantically that she needed to use the bathroom. Everyone woke up. It was too dangerous outside, but she refused to just handle it where she was. In the end, we had to let her out through the back door near Thomas's side. Not long after she stepped out, a sharp scream echoed. Samuel, Ella, and Alexander were already racing outside. I lagged behind Thomas by just a step. There were about a dozen zombies standing on the road, and as soon as they heard the sound, they snapped their heads toward us. Sophia clamped her hand over her mouth, frozen in place with fear. Get in the car, Thomas shouted right away, dashing toward the front entrance where the vehicles were parked. The gas station had already been spotted by the zombies. Going back would be like walking straight into a trap. We couldn't stay there. Everyone ran toward the front gate. I gripped my knife tightly and followed behind Thomas, but I wasn't fast enough. My distance from him kept growing. Samuel's car was closest to me. Hearing Thomas's order, The four of them sprinted ahead and jumped in first. At that moment, the zombies were only 5 meters away, and I had just 3 steps left to reach Samuel's car. I gritted my teeth, ready to sprint, then saw the car door slam shut right in front of me. They drove off. I tried to call out to stop them, but a surge of blood filled my throat. I couldn't say a word. I stumbled to a halt. Thomas's anxious voice came from ahead. "Run! Right, run!" Thomas's car was still in front of me. I turned around only to see the zombie just 1 meter away, its arm almost touching my shoulder. Its lips were rotted off, bones showing through, and I could already smell the stench on it. Thomas was backing up, just a little more effort. I could make it. Hey-ho! Hey-ho! The ragged breathing echoed in my ears as I ran and glanced back, face to face with a zombie full of torn meat stuck in its mouth. Ah! It lunged forward with its mouth wide open. My head spun for a second. The next instant, I was in the passenger seat beside Thomas. Thank goodness. I'd almost forgotten I'm a space-based ability user. I glanced back at the zombie that had just been about to bite me. It was still frozen mid-lunge, probably puzzled as to how a living person could vanish right before its eyes. I let out a shaky breath, my heart still racing. Thomas, seeing me teleport into the car, paused his reverse motion and said with a smirk, "Not bad." He chuckled lightly, shifted gears, and shot forward. Night and the wasteland fell behind us, like we were speeding toward dawn itself. In such a quiet night, not saying anything felt kind of awkward. I touched the spot on my neck that had nearly been bitten and decided it was time to open up. It was finally time for a real talk with Thomas. You saw that, right? I'm actually a space-type ability user. No point hiding it anymore. I pulled out 2 sports drinks from my space and took a sip. That sprint left me wiped. Thomas kept one hand on the wheel, grabbed the drink I handed him, twisted off the cap, and drank half before speaking. "Your ability's pretty useful," he said. Then he asked about the size of my space and how far I could teleport. And after I answered each question, I turned to him and said, "What's your ability, speed or strength?" "Neither. It's control. Like moving objects. Sort of," he said calmly. Then he lifted his hand and moved his fingers, and the drink bottle flew up to the center console by itself. Screwing its cap back on, definitely some kind of magic. In this post-apocalyptic world, abilities come in many forms. Some are simple, one type only, like water manipulation, but others are more versatile, such as mental powers that allow you to explore minds or even put people into trance. But a single type ability isn't necessarily weak. The main character in the book had fire-based power so terrifying that when zombie hordes came, he could create vast fires in an instant, spreading for kilometers and keeping zombies at bay. Thomas's control ability wasn't mentioned anywhere in the book, but with so many types of powers out there, it's not surprising he hadn't come up before. The car kept moving forward, and faint lights from Samuel's vehicle came into view in the distance. Thomas's profile stood out sharper in the night. Stars reflected in his eyes like tiny sparks, softening the sharp lines of his face and giving warmth to his deep-set features. He turned to me and asked, "Alexander left you behind. Are you hurt?" I knew they'd abandoned me in the story, but seeing it happen early like this still stirred up a confusing mix of feelings. We're family, yet some feel closer than others. It made me feel like nobody had ever truly loved me, not from the very beginning. I kept my head down and said nothing, but he seemed to see right through me and reached out a hand toward my low spirits. "Isabella, wanna come hang with me?" He tilted his head slightly, his messy fringe swinging in the wind, carrying that familiar youthful vibe I knew so well, just like how I used to follow him around back then. When he looked up from the game and casually called out to me, "Little Shadow, wanna be my little brother?" My heart skipped 2 beats right then. I drove through the whole night without stopping, finally reaching Swaching Base before noon the next day. The base had 2 gates. After our car passed through the first one, someone stopped us and asked us to get out to register our info. Samuel stepped out of the car and walked over to my side, as if he wanted to say something. Seeing him hesitate, Sophia stepped in with a sorry smile. Isabella, things were really urgent back then. We thought you could have taken Thomas's car, so we didn't wait for you. We hope you're not upset. If it weren't for my ability, I'd have been done for a long time by now. And honestly, I'd already planned to cut ties with them all, so I spoke up straight away. I'm not that forgiving. Let's just part ways here. From now on, you're a family, you don't have to worry about me anymore. We'll take separate paths from here. Isabella. Samuel's face darkened. We've already reached the base. Things were like this before. And they'll stay that way. Your sister's an abilities user now. Our lives are going to get better. Then it's not needed anymore. From the moment you left me behind, everything changed. I spoke coldly, my expression clearer and more composed than ever before. Samuel's fists clenched tighter and tighter. Ella rolled her eyes nearby and muttered under her breath, "Greedy little traitor. Better off gone, no more burden." She whispered into Samuel's ear, murmuring away as expected, once again badmouthing me behind my back. After hearing her, Samuel gave up trying to talk me around. Probably they'd already agreed on this in private. Whatever. I'm done playing along. Now that I'm out of their way, I don't have to deal with the tangled drama between the leads or all the messy family nonsense. I can just stick with Thomas. His strength will protect me. We'll eat well and live comfortably. Stocking up supplies in a world like this. That's going to be amazing. We followed the staff into a small room and filled out a form. Questions about whether we had abilities, what kind they were, if we had any supplies, and so on. Thomas and I silently agreed to both write down that we didn't have any powers. In a world like this, staying low-key is the smartest move. As soon as Sophia mentioned her healing ability, everyone turned to stare. The staff treated her with great respect and led her straight to a private isolation room. We were sent out to the open field instead. We'd have to wait here for half an hour, making sure we weren't infected or mutated before being allowed into the base. There were already plenty of others like us on the empty lot, ordinary people who'd come to seek shelter at the base. They all looked worn out, ragged in their clothes, with tired faces. Some even had small stains of dried blood scattered across their shirts. Compared to everyone else, Isabella and Thomas were in the best shape here. The whole ride was just the two of us. We took turns eating instant rice meals and drinking beverages. Thomas even used his ability to make water vibrate, warming up a cup of milk tea for me. Happiness must be something like this, sitting in the car, sipping on tea, letting your mind go blank, not thinking about the apocalypse at all, as if everything was still peaceful. Midway through isolation, a man sitting in the corner suddenly started spitting blood. The blood quickly turned dark black, and pale blue spots began spreading across his skin, with a sharp crack. His neck twisted at an unnatural angle, lunging toward the teenager resting beside him with eyes closed. After the first wave of screams, the unarmed people quickly fled in the opposite direction. The boy who had been sleeping with his eyes shut was jolted awake by the noise. Suddenly seeing a monstrous face looming right in front of him, he couldn't help but scream, "Ah!" The zombie was so close now that he squeezed his eyes shut and frantically kicked backward with his legs, but there was only solid wall behind him. No place to run. Nowhere to hide. Seeing this, Thomas's expression turned cold. He gripped the curved knife in one hand and pushed off with his foot, sprinting toward the boy. The blade rose and fell in a single swift motion, slicing through the zombie's skull in a bright, sharp arc. The zombie's head came off instantly, cleanly severed at the neck. Blood gushed out in thick spurts from the wound. Its body stayed frozen mid-lunge, unable to move forward any further. Zombie virus takes control of the mind, cut off the head, and the threat is gone. After the fight was over, staff finally arrived with a delay. A team of ability users arrived, tasked with guarding part of the base. The leader was a slight, short man. Seeing the danger had passed, the serious expression on his face instantly relaxed. He sent someone to haul away the zombie's body. Upon seeing the clean, neat cuts, he looked at Thomas, still holding the bloodied knife, with deep respect. Weston, squad leader of the Switching Defense Unit. Wind-based ability. Thomas. He walked over to me. Our isolation period was over, we could finally enter the base. Y'all been together. Right, a couple. Come on. Let me introduce you around. I was about to say we weren't a couple when Thomas took my hand and gave it a little squeeze. I shut up. We followed him through the second gate into the base, where he started telling us about Switching Base. Built against the Longland Mountains, the base had ancient city walls stretching across the range from north to south, naturally forming a protective barrier. You could rent apartments inside the base, but you'd need to trade supplies for them. Without any goods, you'd have to share a large dorm room with others. Ability users got private housing, but they had to join regular cleanup missions outside the base. After completing those tasks, they'd be given supplies in return. Ordinary people could earn supplies by helping with base construction, but there wasn't much to go around, just enough to keep going. Honestly, ability users had it good in this world. Regular folks just scraped by, barely surviving. He went on to share some of the base's research findings. Abilities could evolve over time. For example, water-based users could start with tiny droplets, then grow to make ponds, and one day possibly even rivers, but no one had managed that yet. I couldn't help but wonder, could my ability to expand my space keep growing? And could I eventually teleport farther and farther? Thomas still had some supplies in his car, so we took half of them and rented a 1-month apartment. The unit was an unfurnished new apartment, had a living room, kitchen and bedroom, but no furniture at all. Weston clearly wanted to be friends. He said the base would call us next time they went out to hunt zombies, probably because he thought we were strong fighters. After all, it was pretty unbelievable that a regular person could take down zombies so smoothly. And the fact that we traded half our supplies for an entire month in a big apartment. That just seemed weird. But whatever. I didn't care what he thought at all. Let Thomas handle the zombie hunting. I'd just focus on support. Living one day at a time was good enough. If I died tomorrow, all that stuff in my space would be wasted, right? As he left, Weston smiled and said, "We're currently working on a zombie virus vaccine. Rumor has it we've already made some progress. The virus might be wiped out sooner than we think." We just gave a neutral response to what Weston said. After seeing Weston off, I took a full look around the place and pulled out every piece of furniture from my space. The sofa, the bed, all the other stuff. Then I hung a row of curtains at the front door to keep people outside from peeping in. When I escaped earlier, I had a backup plan. I stayed behind for 2 extra minutes and stuffed every single thing from my house into my space. That's why I was the last one to leave. I hung another row of curtains at the front door, just to make sure no one could spy on us from outside. The apartment had running water but no electricity. The water came from a mountain spring and only flowed for 2 hours each day. We were lucky, today happened to be right during the supply window. I got to work in the kitchen. I pulled out pots, pans and dishes, grabbed the fresh meat I'd picked up from the supermarket earlier, and cooked a few spicy stir-fried pork dishes, simmered 2 pots of chicken soup, and tossed some greens. I also boiled up a big batch of rice in hot water. Anything I couldn't use right away went straight into my space. I'd learned on the road how uncomfortable it was without warm food or hot water, so I made extra of everything. After Thomas helped me finish up, he headed off to take a shower. I sat on the sofa trying to expand my space, but after fiddling with it for ages, it was still just as big as before. Maybe I should give teleportation a try? My teleporting isn't very accurate. I sometimes end up in the wrong place, even when I'm aiming for one spot. That's why I rarely use it. I closed my eyes in the living room, focusing on teleporting to the bedroom, and just as I thought it through, wait, why does it feel so wet and warm? I opened my eyes, locking onto Thomas's deep, bright gaze, the tips of his eyelashes still glistening with droplets. He was completely naked, his chest muscles clearly defined. My eyes instinctively dropped down. What on earth is that? Seriously, who can explain this to me? Floating bubbles and slippers hovered in the air like clouds of mist, covering his most private part. That's his ability. Oh no, caught red-handed. I jerked my head up, hearing his flustered voice. Isabella. Thomas's face was bright red. His ears too, probably from the steam. I quickly activated my ability, trying to bolt out of this suffocating space. But at the crucial moment, it failed. Was it because I'd just been packing stuff and practicing teleportation? My power must have run out. What should I do? What should I do? I started pacing frantically. Thomas used his ability to clean himself off in a flash, then wrapped a towel around him, so fast I didn't even catch the motion. With something covering him now, he wasn't nearly as furious as before, leaning against the door with a mischievous grin. Come on. Then go back the way you came. The rising steam blurred my vision. His short hair clung to his forehead, damp and tousled, giving him a wild, defiant air. They say your eyes look more attractive through steam. No wonder Thomas looks so hot I can't help but blush. Just about to say something, Thomas suddenly let go of me. All right. Just messing with you. Go on out next time you want to see. Just knock. Hey Thomas. Before I could finish, he shoved me out of the bathroom. Ugh. He actually thinks that way about me. And I ended up getting caught by his looks. How embarrassing. I used to follow Thomas around like a shadow, mostly because he was so good-looking, but in his eyes, I was just a little sister. Then I met Alexander. He was kind and gentle toward me, asked me out soon after, and I said yes. Coming back to myself, Thomas had already finished washing up. I pulled out a giant bucket, tall as a person, and set it under the faucet to collect water. It'd take forever for the bucket to fill, so I just sat there feeling bored. Hey, you little troublemaker. He leaned in, raised an eyebrow with a smirk. Wanna go out and hang around? You're the one being naughty, I shouted back, then pouted softly. I didn't do it on purpose, I was just clumsy. All right, just kidding. But what? You really want to see me? I don't mind. His words carried a hint, and before I could think too much about it, he stood up. There are still lots of places in the base we haven't checked out. Let's go explore a bit. We'll be back by the time the water's full. So what did he actually mean just now? Is he seriously trying to latch on to me? This rich girl of mine? Come on. He reached out and grabbed me, pulling me right out the door. The base functioned like a small society. Everything you'd expect was there. Markets, clothing shops, weapon stores, most of it sold by teams who scouted for supplies outside. The only difference was the trade system. It had gone back to bartering instead of using money. Not far away stood a 4-story building, surrounded by large patrols patrolling its perimeter, just like Weston's squad. They were probably all teams made up of people with abilities. On the first floor, there was a wide-open window with a sign that read Blood Collection Station. Some teams of ability users coming in from outside would line up at the window to give blood. What are they even doing? Not sure. We'll ask Weston another time. Thomas frowned, staring at the building. The windows were all covered with thick curtains, making it impossible to see inside from outside, which only made the place feel even more mysterious and strange. The next day I ran into Weston, who was getting ready for the base's raid on Lilatown in 3 days. He invited us to join him, and Thomas agreed. We asked about the small building on the way, and he said it was the base's research facility. The zombie virus vaccine research we talked about before was being carried out there. Since there were still live zombies being studied inside, the base had extremely tight security around the building. What about the blood donation station? He gave a sly smile. Because enhanced people are different from ordinary folks, their blood naturally contains antibodies against the zombie virus. So do that mean enhanced people can never get infected? Of course not. The stronger an enhanced person's abilities, the more resistant they are to the zombie virus. This was a finding published by the Research Institute. Our base requires enhanced individuals to donate blood every 2 weeks. Researchers can extract zombie virus serum from it. If any colleague gets bitten, injecting this serum right away could save their life. But the base hasn't figured out how to mass produce the serum yet. So we have to donate every 2 weeks. So, everyone's happy to do it. This serum is only for enhanced people. Basically a life-saving medicine we're stocking up on ourselves. Weston was grinning from ear to ear, full of hope for the base and what lay ahead. He told us to get ready. We'd be driving out with the base's convoy in 3 days. Many ordinary people also follow along when the base goes on its coordinated missions, driving their vehicles to pick up supplies and then sell them on the black market for a better life. Over these 3 days, Thomas and I prepared for the trip, sharpening knives, cooking meals, and working out. Thomas even pushed me to practice my ability. Now my teleportation is a little more accurate than it was 3 days ago. I've also been watching Thomas's ability. He can move objects at will, even cut them apart and put them back together again. Theoretically, broken glass can't be repaired. But with his power, Thomas can bring the shattered pieces infinitely close until they're whole again. What if my hand got broken? Could you put it back together? I suddenly came up with the idea, and he seemed to be struck by something. His expression turned thoughtful. I don't know how strong his ability really is. I've never seen him use it at full power. 3 days later, the base assembled a convoy consisting of a cargo van and several off-road vehicles, followed by various private cars and minivans, as the large group set out from Sway City Base in full force. Thomas and I stayed just a bit behind the main group. Mainly, we're topping up your space with more supplies. Even though we've got enough now, no one knows how long this apocalypse will last. The longer it goes on, the fewer resources we'll be able to scavenge from the cities. Thomas calmly explained as he drove. I checked what was in my space. Most of it was food and drink. He said this time we'd also need to look for generators, solar panels, gasoline, and winter supplies, all things that are currently our biggest shortages. Lihua Town is about a 3-day journey from Sway City Base. That night, while setting up camp for the rest, I met Sophia. She wore a neat, short outfit, clean and put together, and was walking beside a tall, lean man. That must be the male lead from the book, Mateo. In the story, the female lead's healing ability saved the male lead's life more than once during missions. First, he kept her around just to use her, but she stayed by his side for survival in the apocalypse. They used each other, yet were drawn to one another, and eventually ended up together. There were plenty of ups and downs along the way. Benjamin, the second in command at Swayching Base, had electric-based powers and was originally a death row inmate in Swayching Prison. After awakening his abilities, he united with other powered individuals to build the first prototype base inside the prison, becoming one of the early rulers of Swayching Base. Later, Mateo arrived with an army and scientific expertise, replacing Benjamin as the leader. Benjamin stepped down to a secondary role. But Benjamin never stopped eyeing Mateo's position. He quietly worked day and night to strengthen his powers. When Sophia arrived at the base, Benjamin was the first one to greet her, and he had a secret crush on her. Sophia craved power and control, so Benjamin went to great lengths to eliminate Mateo and take his place. But in the end, Mateo suddenly unlocked immense new powers, crushed Benjamin's rebellion, seized full authority, and won both power and love. It was such a classic post-apocalyptic romance novel. I poked at the fire in front of me, watching Mateo and Sophia appear right here, this time without my meddling as the wicked secondary villain. Their love story should go much smoother now. The moment I saw Sophia, she noticed me too. She whispered something to the man beside her and then walked over toward me. Isabella. I gave a quiet nod. My parents are settled now. Alexander's working at the base construction site. I've made it crystal clear that I don't like him, and if you still have feelings for him, go back to the base and find him. Coming on this mission as just a regular person, you're only after more food. It's too dangerous. Once we return, get back with Alexander. You two can support each other. The base will protect you both. She paused, then glanced at my face. I just laughed. My life is mine to decide. What business do you have bossing me around like some kind of ruler? I'm completely done with all of you. What happens to you doesn't matter to me. And please don't bother me anymore. I sighed again, repeating what I'd already said before. Is it really because of Thomas that you left the safe life in the base to come out here on this dangerous adventure? She pointed at Thomas, who just returned from gathering firewood, her voice suddenly rising. Thomas set the firewood down beside the pile and sat beside me. Without a word, he added more sticks to the flames. I let out a long breath and spoke up in reply. Sophia, yes. The base has given shelter to many people, but we still have the right to choose whether to stay or leave. If you think it's happiness just waiting around inside for protection, working hard every day just to barely survive, then that's your choice. But I'd rather live fiercely and die with purpose. Good. Before the words had even finished, a deep, strong voice came from behind us. Sophia turned toward the newcomer and frowned slightly. I glanced over. There was a tall, sharp-faced man with short hair standing straight up like a little angry hedgehog. His looks didn't match his rough voice at all. Benjamin, hey? As he walked by, people kept greeting him. Judging from the name, this had to be Benjamin, the second male lead. I'd expected someone big and scary looking, but instead, he seemed like a lively young guy. And this boy had once been a death row inmate. I wasn't fooled by his looks. In this world after the collapse, I only trust Thomas now. Benjamin walked over to Sophia and handed her the can of beef. Sophia swallowed hard. In this post-apocalyptic world, a canned beef was a rare treat. Even the top leaders at the base didn't get it just because they wanted it. Sophia was about to reach for it when a man suddenly blocked her hand mid-motion. Sophia, come here. The male lead's voice was sharp and cold, his military uniform crisp as his boots clicked against the ground. Sophia pulled her hand back. I watched the can of beef and swallowed hard. Gosh, I really miss a hot pot of fresh beef right now. I wish we could just set up a hot pot by the fire and cook some meat. I rested my chin in my hand, the flickering firelight dancing in my eyes like little dumplings filled with caviar. Want to eat? Thomas glanced around at everyone nearby. I'm dying for it, like, super duper insanely desperate. But there are so many people here. The smell would be too strong. We'd definitely get caught. We were at the edge of the group, so we wouldn't stand out unless someone was paying close attention, but the scent of hot pot, that couldn't be hidden. Thomas pulled a small pot from his pack and told me to fetch some vegetables, meat, and hot pot base from my space. I tossed in the seasoning, then hid the beef slices and various dumplings at the back. And just like that, we started cooking our hot pot right out in the open. Are you sure no one will notice? I whispered. Go stand a few meters away and check. Thomas turned his back to the crowd and started tossing in the vegetables. I stepped 2 meters away, and sure enough, the delicious smell of the hot pot had completely disappeared. How did you do that? That's so cool. I used my ability to stop the smell from spreading. Was his power really strong enough to control something as tiny as gas molecules? I dipped a slice of beef into the pot, and as soon as it hit my mouth, the flavor was rich, spicy, and incredibly satisfying. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The joy of being able to eat whatever I wanted felt absolutely wonderful. Seeing me enjoying myself, Thomas's lips curled into a smile. His expression softened in a way that erased the usual coldness he kept around strangers. Behind us, tiny campfires flickered softly, quiet and solemn. Being with Thomas made me feel, for the first time in ages, like I was home. In hard times, there's nothing a good hot pot can't fix. Waking up the next morning, life still felt full of hope. Early in the morning, we arrived at Lily Town. The main road into town was packed with all sorts of private cars, people who had failed in their escape. The dense cluster of vehicles made it clear that conditions inside the town weren't good at all. The strength-type ability users from the base were sent out to clear a path wide enough for just one car to pass through. To keep the road clear, only the base's delivery van carried us into the town. Lihua Town has a large warehouse-style supermarket, the exact destination of our mission. It's currently AM, and we must leave before sunset, or darkness will bring unpredictable dongay. Luckily, the supermarket is on the outskirts of town. The ability users cleared the road and eliminated roaming zombies at the same time. Only 2 hours passed. At noon, the group took a short break before boarding the van. Inside the van, Weston with his backpack spotted us in the crowd and pushed his way over to Thomas. "Guys, just stick with me when we get there. Stay behind me if anything goes wrong." He grinned widely and nudged Thomas with his shoulder, acting like he'd known him forever. Thomas nodded, pulling me close under his arm while watching the van's rear door. "Stay close and don't wander off," he murmured, his expression tense. The van suddenly slammed on the brakes. Everyone peered through the front windows at the driver and Mateo, who were talking frantically. Mateo stepped out, and almost instantly, the vehicle jolted as hot waves blasted in from outside. It's Mateo using his ability. "There's danger up ahead." Weston and a few other ability users jumped out immediately. The van was left with only a handful of regular people, and Sophia huddled in the corner, her side marked by a first aid kit painted with a red cross. After a long while, the fighting outside finally stopped. The group returned to the van, and Weston and others rushed back carrying several injured people. Sophia hurried over to check on them right away. 2 people had their hands bitten off by zombies, and a few others were bitten on the legs. Sophia pulled out several vials from her bag and injected those with minor injuries. For the ones in critical condition, she used her abilities to heal them. Soon their grayish faces began to regain color, and their breathing grew steady. We'd barely set off when we ran into a horde of zombies, and everyone's face turned serious. Weston wiped his brow and gave us the rundown on what happened. Those zombies were probably drawn here when we cleared the road. They only know how to lunge and bite, but there were just too many of them. There's always a gap in coverage, which is how they got through and caused injuries. "So you're saying there are zombies that do more than just bite?" Thomas picked up on the gap in Weston's story, staring at him coldly. He knew Weston was holding something back. Weston gave a sheepish grin and leaned in close to whisper into Thomas's ear. "Some areas where zombies gather might have stronger ones. Once, on a mission, we ran into one that was incredibly fast. But they're rare. Our team was the only one to encounter one in base history. The leadership told us not to spread the word. It'd cause panic. Even if we meet one now, with all of us here, it'll be easy to handle. Don't worry, this isn't our day to get unlucky." He let out a light chuckle, confident and cheerful. Inside, I couldn't help but sigh wryly. Maybe, just maybe, we're the unlucky ones after all. It hit me then, the moment in the book when the main couple got closer was when they were on a mission in a small town. The guy had been badly injured by an incredibly strong zombie, and it was the girl who saved his life. Without even realizing it, I gripped Thomas's hand tighter and forced out a calm little laugh. Thomas sensed my fear and pulled me into his arms. "If you're scared, we can just get out and head back to base." "Okay." Weston chimed in from the side, his tone exaggerated. "Not that scary. Girl, you're already here. This supermarket's gotta have tons of supplies. Stock up now, and life will be easier later. Besides, with all these older brothers protecting you, what's there to fear?" Thomas shot him a look to shut up, and I calmed down, realizing he was right. The book didn't go into detail, but in the story, they did end up killing that strong zombie during this mission. Even with all the danger, thanks to the main couple's lucky streak, things should be fine. "I'm going in. I'm not turning back." Thomas nodded. "Relax. It'll be fine." I leaned into his chest. His scent was clean and fresh, and I could hear his steady heartbeat, thump-thump, strong and regular, and felt a deep sense of safety. The car started moving again and pulled into the supermarket parking lot. The engine's noise drew zombies from inside. Everyone grabbed their weapons. This fight was unavoidable. We had to break in, grab supplies, then get out. Everyone rallied their strength. The enhanced team surged forward while ordinary people stayed behind, fighting with weapons. Thomas held a curved blade. I had a cleaver in my left hand and the dagger he'd given me in my right. We stayed at the back of the civilian group, shielding them from zombies trailing behind. These zombies moved slowly, The enhanced killed them like slicing watermelons. As long as regular people overcame their fear, they could take them down too. Mateo charged ahead with his group, slamming the supermarket door shut to block the zombies inside and keep them from coming out. Then he led everyone straight toward the warehouse behind us. The warehouse was just ahead, and everyone let out a breath of relief. Warehouses usually didn't have many guards, so we'd made it through the worst part. Mateo stood at the front of the group, pulling up the warehouse roller door from bottom to top. Everything changed in an instant. A black blur shot out from deep inside the warehouse, so fast no one had time to react. Only when it got closer did they realize it was a zombie, but unlike the others, this one moved incredibly quickly. Before Mateo could even move, the zombie's claws slashed across his body, spraying blood everywhere. The shadow didn't stay to fight. After landing its hit, it vanished back into the deep shadows of the warehouse, vanishing without a trace. Then came heavy breathing sounds. Hundreds of dark shapes emerged from the warehouse's shadows, carrying a stench of rot and decay. My scalp went numb. Goosebumps broke out on my arms and back, and I froze in place. Then someone suddenly roared, "Run!" Only then did everyone snap back to their senses and rush toward the vehicles. We fought our way back, with Benjamin leading a group to hold off the zombies inside the warehouse while another team shielded Mateo. Thankfully, that high-level zombie didn't show up again. After getting back into the car, the driver sped away from the supermarket. Inside the vehicle, Mateo lay in Sophia's arms, a horrifying gash running from his left shoulder to his right waist, almost torn clean in half. Luckily, paranormals had stronger bodies than average people. Mateo still had a pulse. Green healing light pulsed from Sophia's hands, and the terrifying wound began to close under her touch. She was sweating lightly, her face pale from strain. How come these zombies in here are so strong? I've never seen anything like this before. Yeah, they're way too fast. We might have had a shot if we'd been prepared. But now that the leader's like this, the group sank into low spirits. After all their effort to go out, they'd run into a high-level zombie and had to retreat empty-handed. Feeling both disappointed and helpless, Weston stepped in with his past experience, sharing that he'd already killed one of those zombies before, lifting morale a little. Mateo was badly injured. What should they do next? Everyone turned to Benjamin, the second in command at base. "Wild team," he asked. "Do we fight or not?" "Yeah. Whatever you say, we're all with you." Benjamin shifted his fingers, blue-violet lightning crackling at the tips as he parted his thin lips. "Let's go." Sophia escorted Mateo back to the base first, while we set up camp at the town entrance and would scout the warehouse again early tomorrow morning. That night, I was fast asleep in the car when Thomas suddenly woke me up. "Huh? What's wrong? Come on. Let's head to the warehouse. Now." I glanced out the window. The moon hung high in the sky, softening the darkness of the night. The guard on duty leaned against his arms, dozing off quietly, and everything around us was silent. Thomas used his ability to manipulate sound waves around the car, slipping our vehicle away right under everyone's noses. Why aren't we going with the main group? I pulled my jacket tighter. Night air was chilly. That zombie had taken down the male lead in one hit. How could two of us handle them? How are we gonna grab supplies if we stick with them? He gave a sly smile, revealing a little triangular fong. I'd seen him cool and collected, serious, even stoic. This was the first time since the apocalypse that he'd shown such playful energy. He was still just a young man in his 20s, but the world had worn down all his rough edges. We're only two people. How are we supposed to take on those zombies in there? Don't underestimate me, Thomas. He raised an eyebrow with confidence, stomping on the gas and driving us straight to the parking lot near the warehouse. I stepped out carefully, shutting the car door behind me. But Thomas seemed to be showing off on purpose. No hesitation at all as he slammed the door shut with a loud bang. In the quiet night, it sounded like thunder. Every zombie snapped its head toward us in unison, letting out guttural roars. My body went numb. Right away I used my ability to dive back into the car. Thomas, though, wasn't scared at all. He casually waved his hand, and suddenly the zombies lost interest, wandering off aimlessly again. Wait, what's going on with Thomas? You'll never guess. Is that your power? That's right. He walked to the passenger side and reached in to help me out. We moved through the warehouse like we were walking through an empty building. You're not a control of objects type, are you? Did you take over all the zombies? Not really, because if they were fully under your control, they'd just stand still. But these zombies act like we're not even there. Because I'm controlling the zombie virus inside their brains. He glanced toward the dark warehouse, answering my unspoken question. Zombie virus? Well, that actually makes sense. He took my hand and stepped inside. Back when you asked me if a severed hand could be reattached, I realized I'd been stuck in the mindset of control objects. But I'm a control type ability, so why couldn't I control microbes, wind, thoughts, even zombie viruses? Everything. Because his eyes locking onto the shadow behind the shelves, the powerful zombie from earlier. The zombie was under Thomas's control and hadn't noticed us, still gnawing on a corpse. Thomas's ability is seriously powerful. I couldn't help but silently marvel. Could he really control anything, visible or not? That's basically cheating. That zombie that hurt Mateo earlier ran into this warehouse during the day. I tried using my ability to keep it from attacking us, and it worked. That told me everything I'd been thinking was right. So tonight, I brought you here myself. I'd never put you in danger. Thanks for trusting me enough to come with me. His eyes sparkled with intensity. He trusted me enough to reveal his ability. Both of us knew just how unstoppable it'd be in this world. He could have easily pretended it was just a simple object control power. But he didn't. He chose to trust me instead. I've always trusted you. You're the only person I truly rely on in this world. I squeezed his hand tight. In my heart, no one else was as reliable as Thomas. In that shared glance, we both understood without words. Zombies nearby were gnawing on each other. He gently kissed my forehead, and I silently responded, this was our bond, our unspoken trust. The door from the warehouse to the supermarket had been pried open with wire. There were supplies here in abundance, some already torn apart and eaten. When the apocalypse hit, some store staff and customers must have fled here for shelter. But somewhere along the way, a mutant appeared, turning this warehouse into hell. Now there was no way in or out. The zombies could only devour one another until finally, a high-level zombie emerged. I packed some well-preserved food and water, along with the shelves they were on, into my space. I left behind supplies for tomorrow's base team. Then I grabbed the camping generators and batteries from the supermarket too. I took a bit of everything, needed or not. It didn't matter. The supplies in my space were more than enough for Thomas and me to live comfortably for years. Before leaving, Thomas severed one leg of that powerful zombie. We slipped back to base without a sound and curled up together in the car. I was thrilled, checking over everything in my space. I couldn't fall asleep from excitement. Thomas's ability was incredible. And now I had all these supplies. Even if we didn't join the base, we'd still be able to survive just fine in this world. Thomas pulled me close into his arms. Once we get back to base, let's find a quiet place far from people and start a life like in a hidden paradise. We can build our own home together. What do you think? I pressed close against him, my voice firm. Yes. The next day, the base was fully armed and ready to fight zombies in the warehouse. But we couldn't believe it when that terrifying zombie had one leg missing. I couldn't tell if I was imagining things. But after seeing the zombie's broken leg, Benjamin glanced at both me and Thomas, his expression strangely deep. The group wiped it out without much trouble. The warehouse was packed with supplies, so full that people had to stand on the roof just to make room for more. We returned loaded down with everything we could carry, and were warmly welcomed back at base. Mateo looked off color, maybe still recovering from his injuries, or maybe because Benjamin, standing in the group of enhanced users, had shot up dramatically after this mission. The day before Thomas and I planned to leave, the base was hit by a massive zombie surge. This time, Matteo acted completely different, surrounded by flames in every direction. He held the base safe within an inferno ring. His power had grown. Stronger than when we went to Li Hua Town last time. After the zombie wave passed, Matteo became a solid anchor for everyone. Wherever he was, people felt safe and calm. This surge made Thomas and me decide to stay a little longer. He's been training hard on his abilities these past days. Just in case our future home ever faces another zombie attack, he'll be able to protect me. Some enhanced users didn't make it during the surge. The base preserved their bodies and publicly called them heroes, saying they'd build a hero's tomb in their honor. But Thomas and I noticed on one of our walks, those bodies had been secretly taken to the research lab. What are they really doing with those corpses? Alexander was gone. You're his ex, right? Did you sneak him away? Make him come out. I promise I'll forgive him. A woman who acted like a shrew came storming to my door, and I just stared at her, totally confused. I haven't seen him since we arrived at the base. I said honestly, did he become an ability user and leave me? Is that why? He doesn't want me anymore because I'm a burden? She wouldn't stop talking, her mind clearly shaken by trauma. You're saying Alexander became an ability user too? He promised me. He said once he got abilities, our lives would get better. He swore it to me. Her hair was a mess, screaming at my front door and drawing a crowd of neighbors. I had no choice but to pull her inside. She collapsed into a chair, then burst into tears as she finally told me what happened. With more ordinary people arriving at the base and ability users dying or getting injured, their numbers had dropped drastically. So the research lab launched a program. Regular people could sign up to be injected with a modified zombie virus. There was a chance they'd become ability users. Life wasn't easy for ordinary folks in the base. This woman is Chloe, the new girlfriend of Alexander. Tired of doing backbreaking labor every day, he signed up for the program. It's been a week now and he still hasn't come back. I thought quietly. The lab never said what happens if you don't become an ability user. The best? You stay just a regular person. But if things go wrong... I didn't finish my sentence. Thinking of those people who turned into zombies, Chloe broke down completely, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Has the research ever succeeded? She choked out, yes. Weston from next door went through it and became an enhanced person. Now they don't share the dorm anymore. They moved into a private room and live much better. That's why Alexander signed up. Have you even calculated the success rate? About 1 in 10. Maybe. She whispered uncertainly, barely audible. After gathering the details, I took Chloe back home. Finding Alexander wasn't part of my mission, but something about this situation felt off. If becoming an enhanced person were really that easy, why wouldn't the base promote it? And what happened to those who failed the injection? Did they all turn into zombies? Wouldn't that be a terrible cost? I told Thomas what I'd learned. He said not to worry. He'd find a way to ask Weston himself. It was like a thick fog had settled before me. I couldn't make sense of anything. The next evening, Benjamin came to see Thomas. They talked in private for hours. When they finally came out, Thomas looked serious. After he left, Thomas said, I'm going to scout the research facility tonight. Wait for me at home. Once this is settled, we're leaving the base. I gave a nod. But once he left, he never came back. The next day after Thomas vanished, he disappeared just like Alexander had. Once inside the facility, no trace remained. With nowhere else to turn, I found Benjamin. He had to know what happened to Thomas. He didn't come back? Benjamin didn't seem surprised to see me. Where did he go? What did you do to him? That's not something you should be asking me. You ought to ask your dear little sister, Sophia. He lowered his voice and leaned close to my ear. Matteo sent Sophia to me to bring in quite a few people. Guess what happened to them? All dead, turned into power-enhancing serum by Matteo. So tell me, why was he so strong during the zombie outbreak? That strength came from my brother's blood. You think it's easy for someone who loves saving lives to take down Matteo's hideout? Turns out Thomas wasn't special after all. He fell right into Mateo's hands. He laughed maniacally. I saw you sneaking into the warehouse that night in Lihua town. Was it him who chopped off those zombies' legs? You're such a hero. Always trying to save everyone. Destroying Mateo's base should have been a piece of cake for someone like him. Yet here we are, Thomas failed too. He was beaten by Mateo after all. He shook his head in disappointment, blood reddening his eyes. Why'd you even get him involved? What are they gonna do to him now? Huh? He promised me he'd come back and give me a home. But he still broke his promise. Because he's compassionate. He sneered. He had to save our whole squad. And the lab affects every paranormal out there. How could he just ignore it? Look. Here he is. I bit my lip, holding back the anger boiling inside me. Where is he now? Tell me. Wait. You're gonna go rescue him. He looked shocked. I'd advise you not to bother. If you don't stick with me. Sophia's heart belongs to Mateo. I'll use her sister just to mess with them. This guy is seriously messed up. I turned and ran from Benjamin's house. At least now I knew Thomas had to be at the lab. The moon was bright. Stars scattered across the sky. I teleported past the guards and slipped through the side staircase into the lab. I moved as quietly as I could. The first and second floors were dark, and the stairway from the second to third floor was blocked by a heavy iron mesh. That wasn't a problem. I teleported straight inside. The next instant, I stared face to face with someone in thick protective gear. We both froze in surprise. His hand shot to his waist, but I quickly stopped him from pressing the alarm button and gave him a quiet shoo. But he wasn't listening. He shouted, "Help!" Before the word even finished. I knocked him out with one blow. Too late. Someone had already spotted us. Luckily, the building wasn't big. Only 10 rooms on the ground floor. I immediately used my ability, checking each room one by one, just passing through walls, which wasn't too hard. Some rooms were packed with all sorts of chemicals. Others had large glass tanks filled with zombies, men, women, even children. In one room, there was a bubbling blood pool. The person inside was still being drained, barely human anymore, just a dried-out husk. The machine kept running, and I recognized him. He was one of Benjamin's agents. That means Benjamin wasn't lying. I couldn't bear to look any longer. Behind them, people were hung up like goods, waiting their turn after the previous one was completely drained. I searched this room thoroughly. Thomas wasn't here. The sirens wailed outside, so I hurried to the next room. This room was divided into small cubicles, each holding a person lying motionless. Machines buzzed with electric sparks on their bodies, and screens displayed their conditions, some were in the middle of gaining powers, others slowly turning into zombies. A man who just successfully awakened his ability hadn't even regained consciousness when a metal hook from the ceiling pierced his head. He died instantly and was pulled away by a conveyor belt to the next room. What kind of hellish nightmare is this? This one. The next one. No Thomas anywhere. I was already tiring fast. If I couldn't find Thomas soon, my ability wouldn't hold. This is my only chance. Next time the security here will be tighter. And Thomas might have been moved. Deep down, I just couldn't believe Thomas had been drained dry. In my eyes, someone as strong as him wouldn't give up so easily. I knew deep down that Thomas was just an unknown character in the book. If he truly survived, someone with such incredible powers would have had a name. As I searched, tears kept slipping down my face. "Thomas, where are you?" I screamed at the top of my lungs, but there was no reply, just the steady beeping of machines echoing in my ears. I'd searched every corner on the third floor. Only the fourth remained. Now wasn't the time to break down. Thomas was still counting on me. I wiped my tears and headed upstairs. The fourth floor was even quieter than the third. In a room at the far end, I spotted Thomas with his eyes closed. His body was riddled with wounds, and in 4 was feeding some unknown green liquid into him. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed from the stairs. They'd found us. I ripped all the tubes off Thomas and checked his breathing. Thank goodness he was still alive. I dashed to the window, shouldered Thomas, and looked out. We needed to teleport meters away into a narrow alley beyond the small building surveillance ran. If it were just me, I might have barely managed it. But we're 2 people now. And I'm carrying Thomas with me. Thomas, wake up. I shook him hard. Only his ability can get us both out of here. He stirred awake, frowning when he saw me. What are you doing here? Get out. You're awake. Thank goodness. Right now, I can only teleport us to the front gate. But if we're both getting out, you'll need to use your ability to slow down whoever's chasing us. Thomas winced and shook his head in pain. I can't. They injected me with all kinds of sedatives and drugs to suppress my ability. I'm not. Before he could finish, the door burst open. Matteo and Sophia stepped into the room. Isabella! Sophia shouted. Let him go. I wasn't backing down. Why should I? You're doing all this evil stuff. Don't you fear the consequences? She smirked. We're doing this for a greater cause. Without these people's sacrifice, how could Matteo hold back so many zombies during the outbreak? If those powered ones hadn't died, they could have protected the base too. A hero isn't just one person, it's a team, a spirit. But you're stuck in your own selfish idea of heroism. I glared at them with fiery eyes. What do you plan to do with Thomas? He's our strongest powered person we've caught. Did you know we inject him with all kinds of drugs? And his body naturally purges them out after a while. Each purge makes his powers stronger. Once he's strong enough, we'll turn him into a power-enhancing serum, inject it into Matteo, and his leadership will be unshakable. Then I'll be the first lady of this base. You get it? How can you be so cruel? So that's how the main characters in the book got so powerful, by consuming other powered people. And anyone down below who gained powers gets turned into a serum, while zombies get wiped out. Thomas must have fallen right into their hands too. I clenched my fists. This time, I had to escape and expose their crimes. Sophia seemed to read my mind and gave a cold huff. Think you can run? You just heard she could teleport people straight to the front gate. Didn't you? As long as you're within this lab's grounds, there's no way out of our control. Thomas gasped weakly. Let her go. Let her go. Let her spread wild rumors outside. No one gets out of here today. A few more people in protective suits walked in, holding green syringes in their hands. Thomas whispered into my ear. They're wearing protective suits. My ability doesn't work on them. You have to go. I can't make it. The room had nothing but a bed. No objects to manipulate. So Thomas's powers were almost useless. I glanced out the window and saw guards posted at every entrance of the research facility. I clenched my teeth. I'll take you with me. Let's make a run for it. Okay. Thomas gently brushed my hair back and looked at me with soft, lingering eyes. I don't want you to risk yourself. I'll be fine, go now. He shoved me aside and used his last bit of power to knock the syringes out of their hands. Before I could react, he was grabbed. The guards turned on me next. In panic, I tried using my ability, but I still wasn't good at controlling it over long distances, and I tumbled right into the base's main gate, surrounded by a group of other powered individuals. It was all over. Do you even know what they're doing to other powered people? You're all powered too, your turn's coming next. Are you really going to help them? Sophia's voice rang out from upstairs. Isabella, do you really think they're not benefiting from this? My heart dropped cold. Tonight, neither of us might make it out alive. Just when I'd given up all hope, a massive explosion ripped through the upper floor. It came from Thomas's room. Blood mist poured out from the window, spreading across the sky. Could it be Thomas? The blood mist spread, leaving slaughter in its wake. One by one, those who had hurt us just moments before were wiped out by the blood haze. Their screams echoed without end, like a grand, bloody performance. The play ended, and the blood mist swirled into a single mass that shot straight toward me. Deep down, I knew he wouldn't harm me. He was Thomas. I pulled out the large bucket I'd used to store water earlier from my space, emptied it, and carefully placed Thomas inside before sealing him back into the space. I released everyone still alive in the building. turned the rest over to flames, then vanished in an instant. Back at the cabin, I stashed everything into my space pocket, then hopped into Thomas's Jeep and drove out of Sway City Base under cover of night. Once outside the base, I pulled the bucket out from my space. Thomas was still in there, just a red mass, twitching occasionally, proof he was still alive. We drove north the whole way until we reached a suburban villa district at the foot of a mountain. The area had just been finished, completely empty and untouched, with no one living there yet. Thomas and I stayed here for a while. We picked out a house close to the mountainside and settled in like we were finally home. I didn't know if Thomas would always be like this, but I could feel how weak he was. A month after we escaped the base, Thomas's hand started to grow. 3 months later, he kept growing faster and faster. It wasn't until his head and mouth finally formed that he could finally speak. He asked me not to look at him, told me to put him in a room with some clothes. I'd often talk to him through the door. Half a year later, I caught a wild chicken in the mountains, planning to bring it back and raise it, and when I opened the door, there he was, slowly standing up from the sofa. I rushed over and pulled him into a tight hug. "Your legs aren't even fully grown yet." He laughed and fell back onto the sofa with me, a soft kiss landing on my lips. Now I finally have a real home. Extra chapped. "Thomas, why did you turn into blood mist that night?" I lay in Thomas's arms, idly playing with his fingers. Suddenly, his finger turned into a swirl of bloody vapor right in my hand. I yelped and flung it away, then blinked just like that. His hand was whole again. I stared at him, stunned. He let out a soft chuckle. "Do you remember what my ability is?" "Control." He nodded. If a person is sliced into infinitely small pieces, they can be seen as just a collection of tiny particles. At that moment, there was nothing around me I could use my power on. So I turned myself into the weapon. That must have been awful painful. To tear yourself apart into countless fragments like that. Just imagining it sent a shiver through me. I couldn't even begin to picture what he'd gone through. "It's all in the past now," he said, brushing a kiss on my forehead. After that ordeal, I discovered my ability has grown stronger. Now I can instantly turn any part of my body into mist and bring it back just as fast. As long as your power's still there. Doesn't that mean you're basically immortal? Thomas raised an eyebrow, a hint of smug pride curling at the corner of his mouth. Thomas is seriously unstoppable. Suddenly I feel like all the male leads in this book are weaklings. They were so powerful before, probably because they stole Thomas's ability, maybe even absorbed him completely. Now that Thomas is still alive, Sophia and Matteo both died in that blood mist massacre, and the biggest threat to him has vanished. Does that mean I can finally relax and just coast along? I quietly chuckled to myself. This was like clutching onto a massive lifeline. After Thomas had fully recovered, we left our hideout and decided to head back to Sway City Base to check things out. The main characters from the original story were already dead, yet the world kept moving forward. Everything was heading toward a future I couldn't even imagine. Thomas and I slipped into the city quietly, without drawing any attention. The base's order remained unchanged. Benjamin had taken over as leader. Rumor has it that half a year ago, there was a massive explosion at the research facility. Matteo, the head of the base, and some of his followers died in the blast, and all the lab's achievements were destroyed. First, people thought it was a huge loss for humanity, but those who escaped from the facility, both enhanced individuals and ordinary civilians, revealed a shocking secret to the public. The lab had been harvesting powers by consuming enhanced people, and Matteo, now dead in the explosion, was the mastermind behind it all. People were skeptical at first, but when Benjamin's team cleared out the facility, they found dozens of ordinary people who had signed up for the enhanced program. Some had turned into zombies, others were drained dry, some were just skeletons with skin stretched over bone. The sight was horrifying. The public could no longer ignore it. They had to believe what those survivors said. Benjamin used the resulting public outrage to push Matteo's allies out of power one by one, eventually rising to become the ruler of Sway City Base. Benjamin's style was completely different from Mateo's. He favored giving real power to enhanced individuals and young people within the base. Walking through the base, I couldn't help but compare them. Mateo still had a sense of duty toward his people, while Benjamin was driven by nothing but endless ambition. Where there used to be old women selling snacks with their kids at the market, now only enhanced individuals and young fighters were trading weapons here. All food was controlled by the base, distributed daily based on headcount. Younger men went out with empowered individuals to hunt zombies, while elders, children, and women farmed barren land at the back of the base, working every day in exchange for food. As we passed by the base's fields, ragged people, darkened from sunburn, held hoes and sickles, cutting grass, digging holes, and scattering seeds. Under the blazing sun, an old woman with deep wrinkles bent over her already stooped back. Her floral blouse was soaked through. A child under 3 crouched on the field's edge, tiny hands clutching a small handful of seeds. Every time the old woman dug a hole, the child would sprinkle a few seeds into it. Next to the shade of a tree, a bare-chested overseer with a vibrant green tiger tattoo sat idly playing with a small knife in his hand. That harsh look was no surprise. He was almost certainly one of Benjamin's old prison buddies. Suddenly, the old woman stumbled and fell into the field. Struggling but unable to get up, the overseer set down his knife, kicked the old woman with his foot. Seeing she didn't move, he hoisted her over his shoulder and walked off toward a nearby mountain. The child grabbed at the man's pants, crying out, "Put grandma down, put grandma down." The man ignored him, kicking the kid away with a careless kick and walking off without a glance. Farther up in the mountains, women came carrying water. Here, there were no distinctions between men and women, old or young, only those who were useful and those who weren't. The useless died, only the useful lived. Thomas and I quietly followed the man into the hills. There was a large pit, where he tossed people in without care before striding away. A breeze swept through, rustling the leaves above. We stood at the edge of the pit, staring down at layer upon layer of bodies piled at the bottom, some already rotting, others still breathing like the old woman, but all clearly dying soon. We pulled the ones still breathing out of the pit, gave them water and food, and told them to hide deep in the woods. "Please, can you save my grandson?" The old woman grabbed hold of my pant leg, her withered hand shaking uncontrollably. Thomas and I exchanged a glance, then nodded to her. By the time we made it back down the mountain, the people who had been tending the fields were gone. Seeds and farming tools were scattered all over the ground, and faintly from the direction of the city wall came a rumbling like an earthquake. I grabbed Thomas and teleported us over, ducking into a shadowed corner. The wall was icy with cold wind, utterly desolate. Hordes of zombies were coming from the distance, rushing forward without pause and surrounding the Sway City base completely. Without Mateo's powerful abilities this time, the Sway City base was on the brink of collapse. Benjamin stood with the other ability users along the wall in 2 rows. Those in front knocked down zombies close by, while those behind used their powers to strike from afar. Benjamin cast a storm cloud over the vast land beyond the gate, and bolts of lightning cracked down from the sky. The zombie horde felt no pain. They just kept moving forward. But even abilities would eventually run out. Some of the ability users were already showing signs of exhaustion. The overwhelming numbers and sheer presence of the dark, endless swarm broke their mental defenses. Abandon the city. If we abandon the city walls, none of us will make it out alive. There's nothing but mountains behind us. Where else could we run? If we hide in the mountains, we might slow down some of the zombies at least, and that gives us a real chance to survive. We'd be dead before even reaching the woods. Don't make me laugh. Yeah. Benjamin roared, and nearby zombies instantly turned to blackened husks. He lowered his hands, his bloodshot eyes glinting with cold cruelty as he spoke flatly. "Bring the old ones and the children here. Get them to block the zombie horde. Everyone else, follow me into the mountains." "Sir, I can't believe it," his subordinate said, eyes wide with shock. "What? You'd rather stay behind and feed the zombies yourself? Of course not. All right, hold on for 5 more minutes. 5 minutes. Then we abandon the city and head into the mountains. Benjamin jumped back into the fight. All the other supernaturals roared in unison. Yes. But Isabella and I knew this escape would come at the cost of innocent lives. 5 minutes later, ordinary people stood dazed at the city gate, their hands and feet tied with rope, like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The supernaturals retreated from the walls. They paid no attention to these helpless civilians as they walked past, driving cars toward the distant mountains. Without their protection, the city wall wouldn't hold for long. The ordinary people felt the suffocating pressure too. The undead were pounding at the gate. Thud thud thud. Like a countdown before execution. Some children sobbed into their mother's arms, while elders silently wept, waiting for final judgment. The old woman's grandson stood alone at the very edge, now utterly isolated, yet strangely silent. He didn't cry because he knew there was no one left to comfort him. I tightened my grip on Thomas's waist and said, "I'm going down to save them." "How do you plan to save them?" "I'll go down and carry each one of them up to the roof, one by one." Then, before I could finish, the gate burst open under a violent slam from the zombies. A sea of undead poured through the gateway like water unleashed from a broken dam. "Help! Don't come near me! I'll kill you all!" Screams and cries echoed endlessly. I was just about to gather the courage to jump down, one life at a time, when Thomas suddenly grabbed my arm. "Take another look below." I instinctively covered my eyes. "Is it something scary?" "Don't freak me out." I barely managed to build up the courage. "Not scary," he said, grabbing the back of my neck like I was a little chick and yanking me down the stairs. "What's with this vibe? Why is Thomas so calm in such a tense situation?" I peered through my fingers, and the second I opened my eyes, there was a zombie grinning at me, its teeth bared, lips rotted off. "Thomas, help me." I lunged and wrapped my arms around his waist. He twisted my head away. When I looked again, the zombie just walked past me like I wasn't even there. Is it blind? Did its nose rot off too? Didn't you forget I can control the zombie virus? Oh, right. I felt a little embarrassed by my own ignorance. I scratched my nose and watched as the zombie horde completely ignored those poor ordinary people. Feeling like a savior in the apocalypse. So awesome. I laughed, and Thomas gave me that soft, fond look, using his ability to guide the zombies to clear us a path. I held the old lady's little grandson close as we led everyone into the house. Then Thomas and I went back up the mountain to bring the older women down safely. The Sway City base was already destroyed by the zombie horde. It wasn't safe anymore. Thomas stared off into the distance, then suddenly turned and asked me out of nowhere, "Want to build an apocalypse paradise?" Paradise. Thomas took me through the ruins of Swayching Base, packing everything useful into our space. Thanks to Mateo's past connections, they had plenty of weapons, everything I could carry, I took. Food supplies and all kinds of tools were gathered up too. With just one bus and a cargo truck left from the base, we drove everyone out of Swayching and back to our home, the empty villa district I shared with Thomas. Once everyone was settled, we cleared land in the villa area. People could claim plots to farm, and whatever they grew belonged entirely to them. I brought out a generator and other equipment to power the villas, and rerouted water from the mountains. By the time our paradise was fully set up, more than half a year had passed. Over those 6 months, crops grew and thrived. We pushed every corner of the villa district to its limits. When zombies showed up now and then, Thomas was always there, our unshakable anchor. Besides me and Thomas, everyone else were just ordinary people, living peacefully here. Some outsiders who found their way to us saw how safe and free we lived. They chose to stay and build quiet lives away from the chaos. Our days kept getting better and better. Kids played without a care. Neighbors helped each other. Everyone was kind and welcoming. No war. No violence. Just fairness for all. I touched my belly. I was 5 months pregnant now. When she's born, she'll know that even though the world ended, Her parents carved out a safe haven in this broken time. So she can grow up happy and carefree, just like before. She'll understand, yes, the end of the world was terrifying, but with enough effort, life can